What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/IDontWorkHereLady. Ha! And I laugh out loud at laugh out loud. Ha ha! Alright, guys, I bet you're confused because, that is pretty much an intro from me, but it's an exaggeration of an intro from me because I just mocked myself. How advanced is that? Alright guys, first up we have a story called Boss Doesn't Need Any Help, Then Asks for Help and Bashes Me Later. Hi everyone, this is a long post, a long time coming, 10 years. So I've been stewing on this for a while. I hope this is a good fit here, but it could go other places. This is a story where I take continual punches to the gut before gaining my small victory. I worked for a place just shy of 15 years. Worked my way up from chump to champ, and I was essentially tripped at the finish line. I put my heart and soul into this company because I believed in it, and then the last 2 to 3 years because I would have a high-end position. The promise resulted in me returning to get my MBA because the position itself would pay off big for the rest of my foreseeable career. Long story short, and not for this story, it didn't happen. Unbeknownst to me, an outsider, Susan, not working for the company, had been seating themselves in the minds of the board of directors and the CEO for about a year as the perfect person to fill the role I had been working towards. News travels in the industry when someone is getting up in the years, ready to retire. When I say I was working towards this position, I mean the person that held this position started showing me their role, how to do certain aspects, and had me take over essential duties when they were gone. I even worked with their VP on some of these things to learn the ropes. It was intended I'd know how to do it so I could be an easy hire and slip right in. Details for another story, but in the end, Susan ended up getting the position, becoming my direct supervisor. To their credit, they were qualified for the job, but they weren't half as ambitious as the person they were replacing. And I actually knew and was already trained on how to do most of the duties of Susan's position. Combine my now salty ass with the fact that I had gotten an MBA for this position, the entire thing felt like a giant waste. Worse, I ended up having to show Susan how to do a few things. This is important for later. Unfortunately, Susan had a friend and distant relative that worked at my company. Her name was Candy. Candy was a buffoon. Good personality, but how do I put this? Not qualified to sharpen pencils. It's not that Candy was dumb, she just was incompetent. No confidence, no palpable skills, and needed hand-holding and help with every task she was assigned. It took her well over a year of basic Excel data entry before she felt confident doing it by herself. And even then, she'd make a mistake and have to ask help from a variety of people. Candy was hired in her late 30s, and she didn't know how to address an envelope or draft a letter. Susan asked her to make a promotional flyer for a small update on something internal, as in, take these bullet points and throw them in a cute one-page promo flyer. She worked 2 full days on it before she asked for help from lower employees. She was incapable of performing any basic office function, but when she'd complete small basic tasks, she was praised like you do a 2-year-old for crapping in the toilet and not their pants. To make matters worse, there was a position at the company which was essentially like a vice president to Susan, but different. The vice president could handle basic functions if Susan was off on vacation to keep things going, but they also had their own set of unique duties that no one else handled, and Susan should do if VP is gone, but ultimately never would because they were challenging and Susan wasn't ambitious, remember? VP and I were close colleagues and always on great terms. They wanted to work for another 7 to 10 years after having put in 27 years, but was waiting to see how Susan worked out as the new person in charge of this part of the company. VP lasted 2 years after Susan was hired before retiring. Veep told me I should apply for their job because if I was qualified for Susan's job, I sure as heck could do their job. I didn't want to do it as it was a slap in the face and I didn't want to get complacent. But Veep said I should take it now just for the pay bump and then I have something else to put on my resume. Solid Veep gave solid advice, so I applied for it. Susan, of course, encouraged Candy to apply for it, and in a conversation I overheard, Candy was bragging to another coworker that Susan had promised her the position, but Susan would go through the motions to quell employee anger, i.e. me. Longer story short, Candy got the position. So, to recap, I not only didn't get the position of Susan's, which I had worked up towards, been shown how to do the duties, and had gotten an MBA to do it, and then I still wasn't the best candidate for the vice president position. I should note other coworkers applied for the vice president position that also would have been a better candidate than Candy. She was literally the least qualified of everyone that applied. I was perpetually angry during the entire Susan and Candy saga. When Susan was hired, I immediately started sending out my resume, and only doubled my efforts when Candy was promoted. I found a comparable position to Susan's, aka my dream job at another company. It happened to be that Susan also saw this position open, but on paper it wasn't a promotion, so she wasn't interested. She instead encouraged Candy to apply for it as it would be a jump up for her and a huge jump for me. On the day of the interview, I walked out feeling confident I nailed it to see Candy waiting in reception. Candy's interview was lined up right after mine. I found afterwards that the interviewers wanted to compare two people from the same company to see if there was a difference. In the end, I got the position, one of two final candidates, and Candy wasn't considered as one of them. I went back to work, gave my 2 weeks, and left. Now to get to the meat of the story. One of Susan's defining traits was she was confident and able to sell herself, thus how she got the job in the first place. Remember earlier when I said I had to show Susan how to perform a few roles when she was hired? Well, one of my larger duties was IT person. I handled all the IT affairs of the company, from server install to troubleshooting to networking. It's a full-time position to begin with, but I had other duties I had taken on or was given over the years, more akin to 2 to 3 people's jobs, which I had always worked through it because I was working towards the position that Susan had taken. So, in the limited time I had left, I had to take a few days off to burn time and line up things for a new job. I had to show Susan how to do things. For you IT people out there, I happen to be finishing up a big project to upgrade all employee computers. I was a good 85% done with this role, but there were some programs that needed setup via the server or advanced configuration that never got done, plus little hiccups that sometimes take minutes or sometimes take hours to chase down and fix. I left instructions the best I could, but said you'd likely need to reach out for support, and I gave the number to a company I know. But Susan told me repeatedly she could figure it out and it wasn't a big issue. She would never demonstrate she wasn't capable of handling something. About a month and some change later, Susan calls me up to congratulate me on my new position, and make small talk to ask how things are going, etc. She starts winding down the conversation to tell me if I ever need any help, she'd be happy to offer advice. Oh, by the way, she didn't see any information in my notes, but do I know where such and such information is at? What's the password for the server? How do I remote into that again? Oh, and since she's at it, was there instructions on how to get archaic applications working correctly with another application? Hey, half our security cameras stopped working. Do you think they're unplugged? Nothing really important, just if I happen to know offhand. Well, I said I documented the passwords down, network ports, specs, and different configuration procedures, but a lot of it was intrinsic on-the-job knowledge. Susan just sputtered and said, Oh, okay. I'm sure it's right here. Thanks anyways. Good luck. Let me know if you need help. Fast forward 6 months. New job is going great and turns out to be considerably better than demonstrated on paper and gave me opportunity to advance further. I have a few friends that work for IT support companies, and one day, one mentions to me my old friend Susan. Oh, I ask? They said Susan had called them 4 to 5 months ago because they needed help setting up their machines. They were told that a guy they had set up the computers but didn't do a good job and left them with barely functional machines and a mess. Said Susan had to set up a contract with the company and had been one of their most active clients trying to troubleshoot issues, and still does to this date. They make a pretty good payday off the company now. I somewhat frequently bump into old coworkers at the company or clients. I did some project management tasks too. I've been told how it's been a lot different trying to get problems fixed, horrid IT issues, or there's a lot more challenges now that my role was never filled and different people got small chunks. Sounds like a lot of people aren't very happy, and a few more I worked with there quit and went somewhere else. All this has been years ago. Because of the industry I'm in, I bump into Susan or Candy now and then, and they tell me how great things are going. Yeah, that's kind of cool that, like, you still run into these people. I don't know. I like the idea. But it sounds like that company really needed you in that one role, so maybe there was some internal politics going on where they're like, oh, we can't have this guy get promoted. Who's gonna do all his stuff? And so they don't promote the most deserving people because often the most deserving people are needed in the roles they're in. In a well-oiled machine, you don't take one part and put it somewhere else. However, that being said, people aren't parts, okay? Everyone deserves to get what they work for. That being said, I also appreciate the hustle. So if someone can get a job without having to work hard for it and they still do a good job, that's great, because obviously if they do a good job, that means that they deserve the job. And if they got it through charm and charisma, then that's theirs, man. They don't give that stuff out like stuff they give out for free. Alright, this story's called Lady Mistakes Me for Employee and Makes Me Come Back Late from Break. Hey guys, I'm new here on Reddit and actually got it so I can post this here. Also, I'm from Germany and English is my second language, so sorry for any mistakes. This happened to me 2 days ago when I was working in a small store. I'm a part-time employee and usually work just 6 hours a day, so I don't have a break. It was a very busy day and my team leader, I think you can call her manager, asked me to stay 2 more hours. I said yes, since it's more than 6 hours of work now, means I get a 1 hour break. When my break began, I walked out of our store to go to the supermarket right next to us. It was a big one with smaller stores inside, including a bakery. I don't know if this counts as a mall, but I just say supermarket. Usually I just get in and grab water and bread, but since I have a little more time, I decided to stroll around and look for mostly candies and other things I can waste my money on. I came across a very chaotic looking shelf, and since I wanted something from that shelf, I tried my best to make it look normal again, and that's when it happened. A very loud ahem was heard from behind me, and I turned around, only to see a lady who was around my height and more on the chubby side. Like almost everyone here, I moved to the side, thinking she wanted something from the shelf. "No, come here," she said, and I looked at her confused. "I need item I forgot right now." I don't think I have to mention that she was very rude. I just looked at her, shaking my head, and simply said, "Sorry, I don't know." I'm not a big talker, and when a stranger talks to me, I tend to stutter and trip over my own words, so I tried to sound relaxed. I wanted to turn around and walk away, but the lady grabbed my arm. She was surprisingly strong. "You don't know? You work here. How can you not know where item is?" Yep, she started yelling at me. That made me tear up a bit, and I tried to free my arm, but it was no use. What I forgot to mention was I was wearing a tag from my store. It just simply said, "Store name, team. We will gladly help you out." My store where I work and the supermarket store have completely different names, obviously, and I pointed with my free hand at the tag. "Excuse me, but I don't work here. I'm on my break and just wanted to get some snack."
I don't care. I need item now. I have kids in the car and things that needed to be in the fridge.
The yelling attracted some other customers, and they started to watch. That's where I lost all strength to keep myself from crying, and the tears just rolled down my cheeks. Luckily, a man around his 50s came over and tried to calm the lady down, but it was also no use. My ears turned off, and I was now only focusing on not crying. It got louder, and finally, an employee of the supermarket came over and asked what was going on. I tried to explain, but my sobbing made it impossible to talk, and the lady finally let go of my arm, which was now red, and walked over to the employee.
This girl was very rude to me. I just asked where item was, and she told me to step off and flipped me off.
I still don't know why people like this lie. You don't gain anything from this. The employee looked at me and asked if I was okay. Technically, I was, but I shook my head no, still sobbing and crying, which was very embarrassing. The man finally spoke up and told the employee what happened. Well, what he said he heard. Another employee came over and took me away, asked for my side of the story, and tried to calm me down. My break was now already 10 minutes over. I just wanted to get out and go home. After some time, I was calm and tried to talk to the employee about stupid stuff to make myself laugh. While the lady was still yelling and was now demanding a manager. I always thought things like this only existed in America. I guess I was wrong. The manager came over and also asked what was wrong. After that, he went away. I assumed to check cameras, but I don't know. I looked at my watch, and now I was 1 hour late from break. I looked at the door, being kinda paranoid that my coworkers might walk in and search for me. And they actually did. They saw me and asked what happened. First, they were looking angry, but seeing me with red puffy eyes and a still angry lady next to the other employee, my coworker finally figured out what happened and went back to the store. The manager came back. "I'm sorry, lady, but I have to ask you to leave. I just checked the camera and asked other people, and it seemed like you started this fight." The lady tried to bark at the manager, but he continued. "Those people told me how this fight started, and I have to tell you this. I, the manager, can guarantee you that this girl," the manager pointed at me and at my name tag, "doesn't work here. She seems to work at the store next to us." I just nodded and he continued. The lady was now white instead of red and still tried to cause a scene. I got up and left my things in a basket and asked if I can leave now. The manager nodded while talking to the lady, so I walked out the store. I told my team leader what happened and got the rest of the day off. I couldn't concentrate after this and went to grab my things. Ready to leave, I heard sirens. I walked outside, and next thing I saw was that the lady who yelled at me in the supermarket was now escorted out with the police. They actually took her with them. I smiled a bit and went home. The next day, I went back to the supermarket and asked what happened. The lady became physical and punched the manager in the face. I saw him from the distance, and he actually got a black eye, and the police had to take her away. A friend of the lady came and had to pick up the kids that were in the car of the lady. I hope you enjoyed my story, even if it wasn't that good, but I'm glad I can tell this to someone who wasn't my mom. Well, good story. Thank you for sharing. I'm sad that you had to cry in a supermarket because I can tell that was not a very comfortable place to cry. Thank you very much for sharing. Really good story. Glad the lady got arrested. That was nuts, man. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.